Hello, everyone, and welcome to Petite to Queen's Claim Your Career Crown podcast. I'm your host, Lynn, and today I'm joined by our special guest, Mark Willis. Today, we're going to be talking about how to turn graduating with 6 figures of student loan debt into real wealth. Now, I want to tell you, because Mark is the perfect person for this call. He is a man on a mission to help you think differently about your money, your economy, and your future. After graduating himself with 6 figures of student loan debt and discovering a way to turn his debt into real wealth, as he watched everyone else lose their retirement savings and home equity in 2008, he knew that he needed to find a more predictable way to meet his financial objectives and those of his clients. Mark is a certified financial planner, a 3-time #1 best-selling author, and the owner of Lake Growth Financial Services, a financial firm in Chicago, Illinois, and the co-host of Not Your Average Financial podcast. Over the years, Mark has helped hundreds of his clients take back control of their financial future, build their businesses with proven, tax-efficient financial solutions unknown to most financial gurus, and he's become known as Not Your Average Financial Planner. Mark, welcome to the show. I am so thrilled to have you here today.
Lynn, thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are joining us for that very first time, hey, take this moment right now and make sure you don't miss a single episode of Claim Your Career Crown by subscribing to our podcast wherever you get your shows. And while we're on the subject, please take that extra moment. If you love the show and love what we're doing, please give us that 5-star review. All right, Mark, let's sort of dive into this because it's a really fascinating backstory of how you graduated with 6 figures of college debt, and you were able to turn that around into our topic, real wealth. And I'd love to hear about how you processed through that journey and how that became truly your inspiration in your career.
Thank you. And I would say it's sort of counterintuitive to take a liability and turn it into an asset. But that's been my privilege to do with many, many hundreds of clients around the country. And in fact, I've had the great privilege of working with business owners, real estate investors, sales professionals, even NFL Super Bowl champions. But most of the clients I work with just want to take back more control of their financial future. Lynn, they feel like the last few years has sort of made them feel a bit like a tennis ball floating down the gutter of life. And they want some more inputs, more ability to, move upstream, financially speaking. And I just got off the phone right before this podcast, and I spoke with a young couple. They're doing a great job, an incredible e-commerce business. They're just crushing it. But we looked over their total financial picture, like I do with many clients, and they'll end up spending $183,000 of interest payments over the next 10 years if they keep doing what they've been doing. $183,000 of interest payments. That's not even factoring in the principal, okay? And this is not out of the ordinary. It's often that 6 figures of debt of interest payments will leave our pockets if we keep doing what we've been told to do. And that's the problem. We just keep doing what we've been told to do. Now, you brought up my student loans. I did have a massive student loan debt of $120,000 when I graduated. In fact, my wife jokingly says I married 2 women. I married my beautiful wife, and I married Sally Mae because she was involved in our relationship, that's for sure. So we wanted her out of the relationship, obviously. And we were following the traditional methods, sometimes called the snowball method of paying off our debt. And this is where you essentially lay out all your debts one by one and start knocking them out one account after the next until you're totally debt free. So this was our method. And we were living on, the shoestrings and beans and rice. That's basically our diet for the first few years of our marriage. And at some point, it dawned on us that we were paying the most valuable dollars of our lifetime to a debt that we would never see again. This was the biggest problem I had because it shook me to my financial core. 1, because I had never really been taught about money. And 2, when someone did show me this one this one truth, that opportunity cost is the silent wealth killer in most of our financial lives, I had to figure out a better way. So what is opportunity cost? It's where a dollar once spent is also gone to everything else it could have done for you over your lifetime. If I buy a cup of coffee this afternoon for $3, the true price of that coffee might be $12, $15 over my lifetime. Now, with inflation, it's going to be $15 this year, but I just paid an $8 latte the other day. But over time, what does $3 turn into if I don't buy that cup of coffee, if I leave that money invested instead? Does that concept make sense kind of at a high level?
Yeah.
Anyway?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had this major problem that I was sinking important dollars in my young 20s into a hole that I'd never see again. So the true cost of my college might be several $100,000 when you factor in opportunity cost, maybe over $500,000 or more. So I needed a better way to be debt-free. I wanted not just to be debt-free. I didn't just want to get to the starting line of my financial life. I wanted to be on the move. I wanted to build a certain amount of financial wealth for my family and to change my family tree. And I seem to see previous generations building up wealth, crashing, building up wealth, crashing. Couple this with what I experienced as I was becoming a young adult, watching 2008 happen right before my eyes, watching a CPA I worked for at the time make those phone calls to clients saying, "I'm sorry, Mr. Client, you're 63 years old, but I just lost you half your life savings." That shook me, and I didn't want any part of that. So I was digging around for what's a better way. How could I take the force or the problem of this thing called debt and turn it into something, not just to get rid of it, but to turn it into my advocate, my companion, my force for good. It's a lot like jujitsu. When someone comes at you with, a fist or a kick, how can you turn that force against your opponent? That was the general brainstorm I was trying to dig through. Maybe I better hush for a minute and get your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I am fascinated by that analogy too, because with my daughter, she's got her karate going on all the time. So, I mean, you just alluded to having a process for how you can turn that negative into a positive. I'd love to hear more about what that process looks like, Mark.
Okay. Yeah, process is important. Let me start with mindset, then I'll come down to process and skills. So on a mindset level, you have to really think differently. If you believe you're going to be a debtor for the rest of your life, that's where you'll live, right? How many people just have that car loan just on wash, rinse, repeat? Or how many people buy the house only to pay down the mortgage, only to upgrade to the bigger McMansion and just live on that debt staircase for their entire life, climbing up, falling down, climbing up, falling down. The only person that benefits from that is the banker. And in fact, bankers have figured out that that's the most profitable business there is on planet Earth. In fact, there's a great book out there by David Graeber. It's called Debt, the First 5,000 Years. Wow. So banking is as old as the pyramids. It's older than the pyramids. It's as old as human civilization, as far as we know. So banking is a function, not a noun. It's a verb, not a noun. How do we, if we can, how might we take the banking function away from the creeps and the banksters at the local bank or the mega bank, as the case may be? If mega banking is the problem, maybe we can bring banking back to the you and me level, and that might be our solution. How might we become our own banker? How might we become our own source of financing? How might we borrow from ourselves, pay ourselves back with interest, and actually take back control of our financial life, our banking function? Everybody's already in the banking business. Whether you pay cash for the car or whether you finance the car, you're still in the financing business. And here's what I mean. Again, when you pay cash for a car, you're still financing it. How is that possible? Well, we talked about opportunity cost. You're financing it from your future. Maybe the sticker price on your car might be $40,000, but the true cost of the car might be over $100,000 once you factor in the opportunity cost. And that's really the most important financial learning lesson I guess I can impart to your audience, and I tried to get myself, was this undue weight that we put on our present, and we discount our future.
Right.
So how can we finance big purchases like cars, or in my case, a student loan, so that we don't steal from our future selves?
Right.
How can we get compound growth on money and still buy the stuff we need in life? So that was the mindset. I wanted to think more like a banker. I had to think more like a banker because I knew I was already in the banking business. I was just sitting on the wrong side of the banker's desk. So what is out there that can help me act like a banker? What's a tangible process? What's a particular financial vehicle or set of vehicles that I can implement a banking function without necessarily having to raise $100 million and open up, a local credit union or something in my downtown? So what can I do there to do the banking thing? Because I can't really borrow from my savings account. I mean, you can't really do that. You can't really borrow from a stock account. Well, you can, margin loans, but they can take that away from you, right? The bank, the margin loan can be rescinded or frozen or termed out. I can borrow from my house, but again, the HELOC is still in the banker's hands and he or she is benefiting from it. I wanted something that would collect interest and I would be in control. Right. I wanted my tennis ball to flow up the river of life, not flow down life's gutter. So how do I take back this control? And as a certified financial planner, I got to just stop quickly and say, this is going to sound really weird because I was always taught that whole life insurance was a no-no. Like, don't go near it. It's a bad place to put your cash. But I was compelled as I was doing my research as a CFP to get those credentials to open up my financial firm. I could not look past this old, stodgy, boring asset called whole life insurance. Seemed to do everything I needed it to do. So I'll explain this quickly and then I'll hush. Love to take it wherever you want to go, Lynn. Whole life insurance, the old fashioned stuff, was boring. It was riddled with commissions. It was all built around a big fat death benefit. But I found a way through some research to make it more modernized, make it more efficient. We cut a lot of the commissions out of the policy and we build something called cash value, which whole life insurance has. It's called a cash value. You have a death benefit. Most people are familiar with how life insurance works. There's a death benefit. But with whole life insurance, there's a cash value built into it as well. And if we modernize the tool, if we make it a lot more efficient and get rid of the commissions and insurance expenses, we build that cash value incredibly fast, massive cash value early on. That cash value is super cool, in my opinion, as that's a technical phrase as a CFP, super cool. And it does a few things really well. It grows guaranteed every single year, no matter what's happening in the stock market. All right, so the policies that are in force and that I own myself are hitting all-time record highs this year, even as the stock market is down 25, 30%. That's pretty cool. Yeah. It's accessible cash. I can access my cash value for any reason, for any purpose. There's no red tape. I can get the money in about a week or so. So it's very liquid. And there's no taxes due when I get the money out. So I can have a tax-free stream of income, 6 figures of income every year from my policies, totally income tax-free. That's awesome. Third, it is life insurance. So I'm solving that need for my family. And then fourth, I can use the cash value as a line of capital, or as a capital asset that I can borrow against and collateralize. I can borrow from myself. I can bank on myself. And that's exactly what I did. I built up enough cash in my policy that I started borrowing from my cash value to wipe out my debts one at a time. And it was a process, step by step, boom, boom, boom. Now, the neat thing here is when you borrow from one of these policies, if it's truly designed the correct way, the bank on yourself way, and there's a distinction there we can talk about. When you borrow from these policies, they will continue to compound like you did not touch the money. So if you've got, let's say you got 30 grand of cash value, and let's say you borrowed out 15 to go buy a car or to pay off a debt, your policy will still grow on the full 30,000 bucks, meaning we didn't have opportunity cost.
Right.
And that solved everything for me in terms of this financial problem I had, and we all have, which is the trouble of always financing everything we buy. That's how I got debt free. That's how I turned my debt into a real asset.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fascinating. I had not heard about the opportunity cost before and how you factor that in. And that I have heard about using the whole life insurance, but I think it's the combination of really looking at that whole picture. So one of the things that I am curious about, and when you go through this and you are working with your clients or with people who you're talking to as prospects, what are some of the things that you encounter that holds them back? I mean, I know you talked about mindset and, potentially their money story. So what do you find are those common things that you need to help them move forward with?
Well, there's certainly expectations. I think at the root of all conflict is unexpressed expectations. That's true in marriage. That's true in business. It's true in most all areas of life, unexpressed expectations. What do we expect our money to do for us? And I think many people think that they expect that their money should be locked away for 40 years in a 401k. They expect that they'll get 12% a year in the stock market. That's not true, just plainly false. You will not get even close to that. The best research, this is a surprising, shocking statement, but according to third-party research like Dalbar, they put out an annual investor behavior study. The real return for actual investors, Lynn, over a 30-year period from the 90s to today is about 2.5% in the stock market. And that's before taxes. Wow. So if we think our expectation is that we're getting 8% or 10% or 12%, we will be dramatically underwhelmed with whole life insurance returns because they'll do, 4, 5, 6%. And we'll just think that's boring as heck. I love boring, especially in a stock market year like this year. So that's I guess something to anticipate. And I would say too, that it's not meant to be a replacement for your investments. My whole life policies are not investments. I can use them to invest. I've since paid off my student loan. So now I'm doing things like investing in real estate with my policies, which have incredible advantages, right? Because think about that for a minute. If you get, let's say you get 8% on a cash on cash return for a real estate deal, and you borrow from your policy that's still going to give you 4, 5, 6%, whatever, didn't we just increase our market return without any additional risk there? You betcha. Yeah. So that's one I would say. And I'd say another is thinking long range, having the expectation that we're not just going to get into a whole life policy and hop back out again. It's not a get rich overnight strategy. It's a get rich for sure strategy. And in that way, I'd say that's some of the expectations that we have to really process ourselves. And we're taught by our culture to think short range. Gloria Steinem said, rich people plan for 4 generations and poor people plan for Saturday night. So it's learning to think for the 4 generations.
Right. No, that's absolutely true. And I like how you framed that when people can, they do need to expand their mindset, really get into the root of what their money story is so that they can look at things differently. And then what are their expectations and what is reality so that they can, adjust what they need to, what they desire, both for that short term, midterm, and the long term, where they're headed. And so, I know we touched base about the process that you have and how you do this, but realistically for somebody who's starting out, and let's say they have that $120,000 of college debt and they start this process, how long obviously it's going to be different for everyone, but what can they expect? Are they going to be living on beans and rice so they can get that college debt paid off? Or how can they, really leverage that whole life and then make that, that a little bit of a shorter term solution?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will say that there is a process that every client I work with, we follow. First, I like to sit down and just listen. As a guest on your show, I'm having to do a lot of the talking, but when it's time to sit down with clients, I have a set of, I think, just really thoughtful, hopefully evoking questions that bring the very best to bear in our conversations. I listen carefully to what the goals are, what the dreams are. Maybe the whole life policy is not the right tool. So we are a full financial firm. We'll go in many directions: IRA rollovers, Social Security strategies, college planning. If this tool makes sense, then we'll implement it. But if not, we'll go in other directions. I usually sit down and review that conversation first. We'll have a full financial consultation as a CFP. And if I cannot be of help as a fiduciary, as someone working in your best interest, I have to tell you that.
Yeah.
And so at the end of that conversation, if I think I can be of help, then we would have a second follow-up meeting, and I'd share on my screen, here's exactly what your accounts will do. If we're using the bank on yourself designed policy, then I will show that, and we'll say, here's exactly when you could pay off this debt, that debt, or here's when you could buy this first rental property or that third rental property, or here's when your kids are going to be 18, and here's where you could borrow from the policy to send them to college. Because why not, right? Why not borrow from the bank of mom and dad?
Yeah.
So that only benefits who? Well, it benefits mom and dad.
Right.
And it's the kids' inheritance that they're borrowing from and can pay back on their time schedule. So, that's our process. Once we get all that set up, there are ongoing strategy calls, 6-month review meetings. We have brainstorming sessions. I'll be on a call later today with a number of my clients, and we'll be talking about financial independence on a monthly basis. We have a different element of the financial universe we like to go through. So I engage, and not just me, but my team engages our clients because they're a kind of family for us.
Yeah.
And I see it as a long-term solution. Now to your question, if you have a ton of debt specifically, if that's one of your concerns, I will be straight up and tell you, I could have personally been debt-free about 9 months faster had I just paid a debt off the snowball way, the old-fashioned way.
Right.
But I saw the problem with that short-term thinking. I could have been debt-free 9 months sooner, but I would have lost all of that opportunity cost. So using a whole life policy might slow down your project of being, quote, debt-free, but I wanted to be better than debt-free. And as a result of pumping money into the policy, it took me a little longer. I still paid my minimums on my debts. In fact, I trademarked the phrase, the debt snowbank method. Snowbank method, get it? So the steps are this. Step 1, keep current on all your debts. Don't miss a payment, stay current. Step 2, do not overpay on your debts, but instead throw as much as you comfortably can as a challenge to yourself. Throw as much as you can into a whole life policy designed the bank on yourself way. Has to be designed that way, otherwise it won't work. And we can get into what that means, or we can talk later about that. Step 3, as your debts are coming down, your whole life policy cash is going up. And at some point, they'll equal each other. So you simply borrow from the policy and wipe out the debt. Step 4, the policy is then repaid on a schedule that you control. So now you're in control of the repaying of that loan. There's no required repayment plan when you borrow from these policies. That's huge. What if I'm unemployed while I'm trying to repay my student loans the old-fashioned way? Are they going to give me a little break? No. What if it's a car loan? What if it's a credit card? What if it's a mortgage? So that's step 4, is you repay the loan on your terms. And then step 5, once the debt's paid off, you've got an asset that's now building dividend yielding wealth for the rest of your life. So that's the debt snowbank method.
Yeah. I love the snowbank method. That I can see why you've trademarked that. It's fantastic. So, to really sum up, and for people who are tuning in and they're thinking like, okay, this is really fascinating, but they're like at the same time, like, okay, well, where do I get started? What do I do next? What's your advice for what they should do, today, tomorrow, this week, so that they can move forward and take a really proactive step of beginning the journey to get debt free?
Well, if you're like me, I didn't grow up understanding money. I hardly knew what a checking account was. So, first you could pause this episode right now and take 5 minutes and forget about the labels of whole life insurance or 401ks or savings accounts. Forget about all the names of money and just think about the functions of money. Grab a legal pad, grab a notes app on your phone, and just write out a list. What do I want my money doing for me? And boil it down to $1. If I had $1 to do everything I needed in my life, what would I want that dollar to do? What characteristics would I want it to have? This is free. You can do this in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But most of us don't spend our time to think about it.
Yeah.
And so other people tell us what they want our money to do for them. Realize you have a financial plan. It might be someone else's plan for your money, but they have a plan for your money. So you might as well build your own financial plan. And the easiest way, the most free way to do it, you don't need a guru to do this. Write down, what do I want my money doing for me? Maybe that's, and just be wild brained about it. I want it to grow competitively. I want it to be guaranteed. I want to have access to it. I want it to be private and off the radar of the IRS. I want it to be private and off the radar of creditors or people looking to attach themselves to me in some way negatively. I want it to be, I want it to have passive income. You can make this list any way you want.
Yeah.
Once you've got your list, go look for financial vehicles that meet as many of those on your list as possible, and don't settle. I would say don't settle, because they're out there. There's millions of ways to put your money to work, and feel free to reach out to me if you want to chat, but you can do that on your own. I mean, that's something you don't need anybody's help to be a financial guru, because you know more than anyone else what you want your money doing for you.
Yeah, no, that is a fantastic exercise. And I recommend everyone, take that 5 minutes, whether it's right now or after the show or this evening, and get that written out, because that is brilliant. Oh, Mark, thank you so much for sharing how to turn graduating with 6 figures of student debt into real wealth. I can guarantee our listeners are going to want to know more about you and where they can find and connect with you.
Happy to be on the show, and thank you again, Lynn. I appreciate your time and the ability to speak to your audience today. It's an awesome tool, but it's more importantly, it's a fantastic journey figuring out this wild, crazy relationship with money in this world. So yeah, I'd be honored to sit down and chat with folks for a strategic 15-minute introduction call. Maybe I sparked an idea here, or got a question that wasn't answered. Reach out. You can go to kickstartwithmark.com. That's kickstartwithmark.com. And I'd be honored to sit down and chat and see if any of this was a good fit, or if other tools might be a good fit for you in your circumstance. So that's kickstartwithmark.com.
All right. And we'll make sure that link is right below. So Mark is one click away. And once again, thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. This has been such an informative discussion. And if you have ideas that you'd like to share, you can leave us a comment down below. We love hearing your thoughts. And if you have a specific question or would like to suggest a topic for discussion, you can email us at jointheconversation@petitetoqueen.com. And to stay current on all of our insightful advice, our breakthrough advantages, the incredible episodes like the one today with Mark, please take this moment to sign up for our weekly wisdoms at petitetoqueen.com, and you won't miss a single episode. And again, I want to thank everyone who tuned in. And Mark, thank you so much. This has been such a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate your being here today.
Thank you.